We see in our first reading today that David heard of what happened to Saul and his son Jonathan. Right? They both died in battle. Here, David took hold of his clothes and tore them, and all the men who were with him did the same. They mourned and wept and fasted until evening for Saul and for his son Jonathan. Now, Saul was not the best friend of David. We need to remember that, right? Saul was out there wanting to kill David because of his jealousy. And I'm sure it caused a lot of fear and an anxiety on the part of David. And yet, when he heard that Saul and Jonathan died, he fasted and wept instead of rejoicing and feasting. The question that we have to ask ourselves is that, how do we respond when we hear something bad or a misfortune happen to people who are there to harm us, right? Who did something bad to us? Is there a part of us that would rejoice that they're experiencing this misfortune? Or do we have this compassion towards them? That's the question that we have to ask ourselves, right? And I think the reason why David was able to continue loving Saul despite his envy, his jealousy, his anger towards him was because he also remembered how imperfect he was, right? He committed adultery, he committed murder, and yet God forgave him and never stopped loving him. And he was able to share that love and compassion towards Saul. And I think that's the key, right? For us, it's so, whenever we see our imperfection, it's so easy for us to just get discouraged, disillusioned, disappointed. We could easily use a 2x4 and hit ourselves. And we could easily call that as 2x4ing, right? We 2x4 ourselves. And yet when we let God love our imperfection, that's where we start to love our imperfection ourselves. I'm still in the process of doing this. I still struggle whenever I see my imperfection. One book that I've just listened to the audiobook, The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. For those who struggle, with their imperfections, I encourage you to read or listen to that book. Because when we couldn't love our imperfection, we couldn't also love the imperfection of others. Because it's a mirror. It's a mirror. As we start loving our imperfection, then we will start to love the imperfection of other people.